Welcome back to the Page Club. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe and give us a like. And tell your friends, especially the ones who can't seem to get anything done. You know, we're going to tackle something I think we all struggle with sometimes. Procrastination.
It's a pretty universal experience.
It is.
And it's something we've been really digging into.
Literally.
Yeah.
We actually read a whole book about this.
I read a cover.
All about procrastination.
Yeah.
And one of the most interesting things is that it's not just about laziness.
Right.
It's really about like mood management.
Yeah. It's definitely more nuanced than just calling people lazy. The book makes a distinction between intentional delay, which can be strategic,
Right.
and true procrastination, where we delay even though we know it'll probably make things worse later on.
So if it's not laziness, what's happening in our brains when we procrastinate?
Well, it seems like we're trying to avoid negative feelings. The negative feelings associated with the task. We're choosing that short-term mood boost, like scrolling through social media or something,
Right.
at the expense of our long-term goals.
So we're making a deal with our future selves.
Exactly.
Future me will handle it,
Yeah.
even though future us is just as likely to procrastinate.
Exactly. The book delves deeper into that whole idea of the future self.
Okay.
It argues that procrastinators often have this flawed logic
Oh.
where they believe their future selves will somehow be better equipped to handle the task.
More disciplined.
More focused, more whatever.
I don't know if I completely agree with that. Because sometimes things do change.
Right.
Maybe your schedule opens up.
Sure.
You get more clarity on a project.
Oh, okay.
So I think, sometimes our future selves are genuinely better positioned to do something.
That's a fair point. There are definitely situations where delaying a task might be the best approach.
Right.
But I think the key here is to be honest with ourselves about why we're delaying. Are we waiting for information or a better time? Or are we avoiding starting because it's uncomfortable?
And the book talks about some pretty serious potential consequences of chronic procrastination.
Yeah.
I mean, not just missing deadlines, but things like lower salary, even
Right.
depression, poor sleep.
Yeah, those potential consequences really highlight the importance of addressing procrastination.
Yeah.
It's not just a quirky personality trait. It can really impact our well-being.
It's serious,
Yeah.
mentally and physically. So we've established that procrastination is more than just laziness.
Right.
It's this mood management, this
Yeah.
relationship with our future selves.
Right.
But why are some people more prone to it than others?
Well, the book explores a few different psychological factors that contribute to procrastination, including low self-esteem
Okay.
and also this tendency towards perfectionism.
Wait, perfectionism.
Yeah.
How does that tie in? Wouldn't perfectionists be more likely to get stuff done?
It seems counterintuitive, right? But think about it. The fear of not meeting those really high standards can be paralyzing.
Uh-huh.
So rather than risking failure, they might just procrastinate and avoid the task altogether. It's tough, right?
It is.
That fear of failure, it's such a powerful motivator, or I guess demotivator.
Yeah. It can keep us stuck,
Definitely.
even when we really want to achieve those goals.
Yeah.
So we have these underlying things, right? The fear of all these negative emotions, the pressure from our future selves. But the book doesn't just leave us hanging.
It doesn't.
It gives us some strategies, like how do we overcome this?
Yeah.
How do we actually beat procrastination?
It all starts with an idea that I found kind of surprising at first.
Okay.
Self-compassion.
Self-compassion. That sounds, I don't know, a little touchy-feely for a book about productivity.
I know. I had the same thought at first. My instinct is always to fight procrastination with willpower.
Yeah,
a little bit of self-criticism.
Right. You got to be hard on yourself.
Exactly. But the book argues that self-compassion is actually a much more effective approach.
So instead of beating ourselves up for procrastinating, we should be nicer to ourselves.
Yeah, it's not about making excuses or anything.
Good.
It's about recognizing our struggles with kindness and, understanding that everybody procrastinates.
Yeah.
It's just a human thing.
Okay. So how does being kind to yourself actually help get things done?
Well, when we're criticizing ourselves all the time, it creates negative emotions, right?
Right.
And procrastination is partly about avoiding negative feelings. So if we can practice self-compassion, we're actually reducing the urge to procrastinate.
Interesting. So it's like self-compassion lays the groundwork.
Yeah, it does.
Creates that supportive environment.
Yeah.
Okay, but then, what are the actual steps to actually break free?
Well, the book offers 4 concrete steps that you can start using right away.
Okay.
The first one is define the task.
Define the task. Seems pretty basic.
It might seem obvious, but we often procrastinate because we're not clear on what needs to be done.
Okay.
That uncertainty can be really intimidating.
Yeah.
It's like clean the house is on your to-do list,
Right.
but you don't specify what rooms or what kind of cleaning needs to happen.
Exactly.
So get specific.
Yeah.
Write it down. What exactly are the deliverables? What does done look like?
Okay. Define the task. Got it. Step 2.
Break it down.
Okay.
So instead of this one big, overwhelming task, break it down into smaller chunks, more manageable chunks.
This is something I actually do.
Yeah.
And it really helps.
Does it?
If I have a big presentation, I break it down. Research, outlining, creating slides, practicing.
Exactly. And each small win builds momentum.
Yes.
You start to feel a sense of progress, which makes you less likely to procrastinate on the next step.
Okay, so define the task, break it down. What's next?
Step 3, minimize distractions.
Ooh, distractions.
This could mean a dedicated workspace, noise-canceling headphones, or even, website blockers. Keep you off social media.
Oh, I need those. Social media is my downfall.
Yeah. We all have our weaknesses.
For sure.
The key is to be aware of them and, create systems to mitigate them. Some people can work in a coffee shop.
Right.
Some need absolute silence. Find what works for you.
So we've defined the task, broken it down, gotten rid of the distractions. What's the final piece of the puzzle here?
The most important step, and often the hardest, just start.
Okay.
Even if it's just for 5 minutes,
Okay.
overcoming that initial inertia, it's often the biggest hurdle.
Oh, I know. Sometimes I spend more time dreading a task than it would actually take me to do it.
Yeah.
It's like there's this barrier, this mental block.
Right, and that's what those 5 minutes are for. Just starting, even in a small way, can get the ball rolling.
Okay, I'm convinced. Define the task, break it down, eliminate distractions, and just start. Those are good, actionable steps. But I gotta ask, are these enough?
That's a good question. I think it highlights an important point. These practical steps are most effective when we combine them with that psychological work we talked about earlier.
So the self-compassion, the self-forgiveness, that's the foundation.
That's the foundation. Think of it like building a house. You need a solid foundation
Yeah.
before you can start putting up walls,
Okay.
installing a roof.
Right. Good analogy. But what about when we try to build a house without a foundation?
I like that.
What happens then?
Right.
What about those times when we just can't seem to get those first steps right?
Yeah, it does. It does address that. And that's where the idea of self-forgiveness comes in.
Okay.
We need to accept our procrastination,
Okay.
allow ourselves to feel those negative emotions that pop up,
Uh-huh.
and then work on getting past them. It's not about beating yourself up or dwelling in those feelings.
Wow.
It's about acknowledging them and then moving on.
So it's like we're giving ourselves permission to be human,
Yeah,
to make mistakes,
exactly.
learn from them.
And it's interesting. This all ties back to that cognitive bias
Okay.
called the intensity bias. We tend to think our negative emotions will be way more intense
Yeah.
and last way longer than they really do.
So we're more resilient than we think.
We are. And the book, it encourages us to remember this
Uh-huh.
when we're tempted to procrastinate. That discomfort that we're trying so hard to avoid
Right.
is probably not going to be as bad as we think it is.
That's really good to remember
It is.
because we build up these mental walls around tasks, right?
We do.
Fearing the worst. But maybe those walls aren't so solid after all.
I like that. It's a good way to put it.
This has been a really insightful look at procrastination. I feel like I understand it better now.
Yeah.
And I have some tools I can actually use to start tackling it,
Awesome.
in my own life.
I'm glad to hear that. And remember, it's a journey. It's not like you're just going to arrive at some destination.
Right.
There will be days where you procrastinate, but that's okay. The key is to just keep practicing that self-compassion.
Uh-huh.
Refine your strategies. Keep moving forward. You spent a lot of time on this topic, right?
I have.
Do you have any procrastination confessions?
Absolutely.
Strategies you found particularly helpful?
Well, I'm not a productivity guru,
Yeah.
but one thing that helps me is setting a timer
Okay.
for just 5 minutes. It sounds so simple,
Does it work?
but it's amazing how often that 5 minutes becomes 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and then suddenly I'm in the zone. Yeah. I'm actually enjoying the task.
That's that just start principle. Then.
Exactly. Overcoming that initial inertia.
It makes such a difference.
It really does. And the other thing I've learned is, be kind to myself when I do mess up,
Yeah,
because we're all going to procrastinate sometime.
we are.
It's human nature.
Totally.
Beating myself up just makes it worse. So I try to practice self-forgiveness, acknowledge it, and move on.
I think that's great advice.
So the big takeaway for me is this. Procrastination isn't a character flaw.
Right.
It's a coping mechanism. It's how we deal with difficult emotions. And if we understand that,
Yeah.
we can approach it with more compassion.
Exactly.
We can find better ways to manage those feelings.
Couldn't agree more. And what if we could see those unpleasant tasks, not as something to dread, but as opportunities
Oh, wow.
to practice self-compassion
Okay.
and build up our resilience?
I love that.
That's when real change happens, I think.
To our listeners, we hope this deep dive gave you some new insights into procrastination. And maybe even some tools you can use.
Yeah.
Remember, you're not alone in this.
You're not.
With a little self-compassion and some good strategies,
You got this.
you can reclaim your time and achieve your goals.
And if you have any aha moments of your own, we'd love to hear about it.
Yeah.
Share your thoughts, your strategies, down in the comments below.
And don't forget to subscribe and give us a like if you enjoyed this deep dive. We'll be back next week with another one. Until then, happy reading.